Hello everyone, just Gordon here and welcome back to another Planet Zoo real life inspiration video. And about 1 year ago, someone asked, can you please do a Nile Lechwe video? And I said, no, I don't have enough footage. And then they kept asking for like half a year, and I had to keep telling them, no, I don't have enough footage. The footage I do have sucks. So for the past months, I've been doing my best, getting as much Nile and other Lechwe footage as possible. So today we're finally looking at the Nile Lechwe. So let's jump right into things at Safaripark Beekse, Bergen. And we'll be spending quite a bit of time here because not only is this a massive enclosure, this is actually a new enclosure. This is the Elephant Valley where the Nile Lechwe share the habitat with the African elephant as well as the Fassa waterbuck. This is, as I said, a newer enclosure for the zoo, so we will also be taking a look at their old enclosure, and the Nile Lechwe here are also found at the Safari Resort. So we'll be spending the first like 5 to 6 minutes at Safaripark Beekse Bergen, which is definitely not a punishment because it's a great zoo. So over here you can see some lovely themed feeders, mainly for the elephant, but we just saw the waterbuck using them as well. You have some views from the Africa Village terraces into this enclosure as well, so you can enjoy the waterbuck while you eat your ice cream or your burger. We can see this path is lovely planted, and we can see over here a separation between this enclosure and the enclosure for the Lechwe, and we got some habitat immersion, some landscape immersion with the hyenas over here in the front, and then the elephants and the Lechwe in the back. And we can actually see a hyena with a Lechwe standing out of focus behind it there. This is the backstage. The middle building is for the Lechwe and the waterbuck, and that connects right up to the enclosure. From this aviary you also get a view of the enclosure in the back. As you can see, it's right up against the enclosure, so you might be able to see a Lechwe walking behind the aviary there. It's really awesome. Yeah, here you can see the Lechwe in the background in the enclosure, grazing a little bit on the little grass that has left, whatever the elephants haven't stomped. Yeah, you can really go all the way around this enclosure, and there's viewing areas everywhere, but there's also little patches of plants and rock to break up line of sight. It's awesome. Anyway, that was the new enclosure. Over here we are at the old enclosure. This is, as you can quite clearly see, swimming there in the water, the hippo enclosure next to Congo Square. And yeah, this used to be the home of the Nile Lechwe. They shared this with the hippo as well as marabou stork. The Nile Lechwe have since been replaced with the Sitatunga as the Lechwe moved from the hippo enclosure to the elephant enclosure. So they kind of upgraded in terms of pachyderm roommates, I guess you could say. Yeah, it was a really nice habitat. It was always really cool to see the Lechwe here, usually being a little bit out of the way of the hippo. They had their own little area which is separated from the hippos with some rocks, logs, and hot wire as well that the Lechwe could just step over. So yeah, really cool stuff right there. Now let's look at the final Beekse Bergen bit of content over here, which is the Safari Resort. And over here we got a massive backstage stall, which we can actually go inside of because I took a backstage tour here once. So as we enter the backstage stalls, we can see lots of food for all the animals, including buckets with feed for the antelopes and the giraffes and such. Over here we can see all sorts of stalls. These are for the zebra, but I'm pretty sure the Lechwe stalls would look almost identical. What's really cool here is that they actually showed us how the locking mechanism works. So yeah, you can see how the gates can be manually operated by the zookeepers right there. As we go outside, we actually get a view of the kind of observation post of the keepers. Here they can feed a lot of the animals by hand if need be, do some checkups. And you can see there's some separate holding over there right next to the stalls where they can group the animals before letting them out onto the plains, which is pretty useful, especially with large shared habitats like this. Here we can also see some storage for hay and other things like that. But yeah, now let's actually look at the enclosure. So right now we are on a walking bridge, which is between the habitat of the car safari, the giraffe habitat of the car safari of the zoo, and this massive habitat of the Safari Resort. So we can see the stalls that we were just in on the left, and here we can see the huge field that all of these animals are on. Little patches of green left protected by some hot wire, but the Lechwe apparently can just go through that and get up to some grassy areas away from the giraffe. And you could see the caribou town building in the background there. So if you are sleeping over here, of course, from your little lawn next to your house, you can get right up to all the animals here and enjoy the lovely sights of the Lechwe in their lovely enclosure over here. It's absolutely awesome, and the Lechwe really gave me a treat. This was literally recorded like days before I'm doing this voiceover, which will be a few weeks ago by the time this video goes live. But yeah, you can literally just walk along this entire enclosure as long as the people don't mind you walking in what's essentially their vacation home backyard, I guess. But luckily nobody really minded, except for like one family that asked me to go around. But yeah, here at the terrace of the kind of restaurant of the resort, you get a great overview of this enclosure. And here you can actually see this is not the end. The enclosure has an L shape and goes even further into another direction. So as we keep following along, we see there's even more space out here. There's some shelters for the giraffes, which I think are pretty new. I didn't see them last time I visited the resort. And yeah, it just keeps going, man. It is such an enormous enclosure. On this side of the enclosure, there's actually more backstage as well, which you can see there on the left. I think that one's for the ostriches and the dromedary camel, but the Lechwe and the zebra and such are in the other enclosure that we were in. Yeah, it's absolutely massive. It's fantastic. I love the safari resort. It's such a great place. But yeah, that is going to be it for Safaripark and Safari Resort Beekse Bergen. Let's move on to some other zoos. So over here, we are in the Czech Republic in another safari park, coincidentally. This is Safaripark Dvůr, where the Lechwe are adjacent to the car safari, but in this part of the car safari you don't actually drive through the enclosures, you just drive alongside this one. I surely don't mind. This is such a gorgeous enclosure. It is literally just a hill, but it's the coolest hill I've ever seen a Lechwe set foot onto. It is just so beautiful, and there's no barriers in the background, so you just get amazing views of the animals that just look so naturalistic. Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, just look at that. Just look at that. It's fantastic. So yeah, awesome stuff over there at Dvůr. Next up we have Zoo Jihlava, which has a lovely Africa area right next to the entrance over here, and this over here is the giraffe habitat, which has some separate areas divided by all of these rocks and such that the other animals like the Nyala and the Nile Lechwe can escape into. Over here we have only the Nyala outside. Later the giraffes also came outside. The Nile Lechwe sadly were not really outside the day that I visited, but yeah, as we cross this bridge over here we can see into this other yard, which currently houses the zebra, but I'm pretty sure the Lechwe would also be able to go inside of that habitat if the zoo decided to let them out in there. But yeah, over here you can see some of the backstage holding, and you could barely see it, but there was actually a Lechwe standing in there, I'm pretty sure. We'll see them as we keep going around. So here you have more views of that zebra enclosure right there, and there is another viewing point, an more elevated viewing point over here as you come up along the side, so here you get a really nice view of that as well. It's a really cool enclosure. I love all of the detail working in the barriers. The barriers are really nicely built out of all of the twigs and sticks and like dry stone. It's really cool. Yeah, we can really just keep going around this one until we get to this other bridge, and that will give us yeah, more views of the enclosure, but also a view of that backstage once again. So as we keep going along here, along the zebra, yeah, we have this bridge, which is to let the keepers into the enclosure. Of course, there's a gate underneath the bridge, and right here we will finally be able to see the Lechwe kind of tucked away in this little backstage holding over here. So you do get to see them, but yeah, not the best views, I suppose. And yeah, as we go past the backstage has views into the giraffe backstage, but not the Lechwe, so there's no point in looking at that now. Yeah, more views of the giraffe enclosure, but that's it for Jihlava. Next up we have the Zoo of Karlsruhe, where the first thing we're going to look at is the scimitar horned oryx enclosure over here on the right, because I noticed that the Nile Lechwe, intended or not, were actually getting to the right of their barrier. You can see for a split second, you could see it right there, that the male Lechwe was standing on the other side of their barrier here. So they're actually able to climb through this little log barrier to get to the other side, to get away from the giraffes. Maybe that's the intent, because on the left side is also the giraffe enclosure, which you can see by, well, the very tall indoor building, but also these very tall shelters that you can see throughout the enclosure. But yeah, the Lechwe, we're standing over here enjoying some twigs, and as we go around the backstage building, which is as far as I can tell only for the giraffes, we can actually go up some stairs to be eye to eye with the giraffe over here, where we can see the Lechwe also had taken some interest into this giraffe, maybe picking a fight that he can't win, maybe getting some regret later. And this was definitely the coolest footage that I've ever recorded of literally the giraffe just kicking away at the Lechwe. Didn't really connect any of those hits. It's not like that Red River hog at Animal Kingdom that I heard about went viral. Yeah, nothing bad seems to have happened here, but they did seem to keep teasing each other quite a bit. So that was pretty interesting to see that the Lechwe did not back down after that confrontation right there. You can see on the left the enclosure is also connected to this other enclosure, which is for zebra. I'm not sure if that door is there to ever let animals through or if it's just there for keepers to get access to both enclosures. But it is there. So yeah, here you can see them still going at it. It hasn't ended. Poor Lechwe. I mean, he can get away if he wants. It's his own fault. But yeah, that's it for the zoo of Karlsruhe. So let's move on to the next zoo. That's going to be the zoo of Cologne, where I had the most beautiful thing that I ever witnessed. In the background, you can see the Lechwe running through the water with all the water splashing up. But sadly, back then I was still recording at 1080p. Silly me. That would have been such cool footage otherwise. But yeah, that's just how things go sometimes. You can't win them all. But yeah, here, going a bit more forward in time, we can see the enclosure in the summer, which is definitely a bit better looking. This is just for the Lechwe. They have a nice large body of water to run through, which is really, really cool. But yeah, that's pretty much all there is to see here. Next up, we have the zoo of Leipzig. Here the Lechwe can be found on the main safari enclosure of the zoo in the Africa area. We also saw this enclosure pretty recently in the Thompson Gazelle video, but whereas the Thompson Gazelle kind of hid away in a corner of the enclosure, the Lechwe can definitely be found out and about between all the other animals. So yeah, let's just take a nice stroll around this enclosure, which can mostly be seen from these elevated points of view, kind of bringing you up with the giraffes. As we go around the corner, you can see just how much further on it actually goes on for. And yeah, you can see the whole side of the restaurant from which you can take a seat, eat your delicious food alongside all of these amazing animals. I can't really seem to spot any of the Lechwe in this particular footage. I definitely did see them that they are out there, but yeah, especially the GoPro footage, if they're quite far away, you can't really make them out. But yeah, as you can see, there are some areas separate from the giraffes. So yeah, there we go. There's some Lechwe. I don't exactly know where that video was taken from. But anyway, cool thing over here is that we got the spotted hyena enclosure with that savanna enclosure in the background. So once again, we got some landscape immersion with the spotted hyena, which is the second enclosure from Nile Lechwe that does that. If I had a penny for, yeah, pretty cool. That's a thing that we saw twice because it's a really cool thing regardless. So yeah. One more nice elevated view from up here, and that's gonna do it, except that you can also see this enclosure from outside the zoo. Actually, if you're in this city park, you can get some peeks into the enclosure from here. We can actually see the Lechwe walking around behind the reeds there. So yeah, cool beans, cool stuff right there. Really cool things from Leipzig. Let's move on to the zoo of Magdeburg, where after going through the entire elephant area, we get to the Nile Lechwe habitat, which is behind this wall of twigs. So here the elephant area also features Nile Lechwe, although not in the elephant enclosure itself. They have their own little enclosure over here. It's a pretty nice looking one with the faux rock wall and some nice trees and plants. This was actually my first time, I'm pretty sure, really getting close up to a male Nile Lechwe. So I was really excited to see that one. I got some good shots of both him and, well, I guess that's another male with slightly smaller horns. But yeah, that was just really, really cool to see them right there. And yeah, the enclosure's quite nice as well. Nothing too special, but definitely not too shabby. Next up, we are at the zoo of Ostrava, where we've got another mixed savanna habitat, a really nice looking one. Just a nice open field with a slight slope to it, with some cool bits of detail strewn throughout. We've got another elevated view right here as well, so you can get up high with the giraffes. But yeah, this is a pretty stunning looking savanna habitat. I just love how green it is. And yeah, in the background we can see the Lechwe walking around. We've got much more viewing areas around here as well. Like here below that elevated viewing area is one from the bottom as well, which gives you a slightly different look of the entire space. And yeah, you can keep going along the side of this one to get other views. As you can see, there's also a bit of a road going through this one. Actually, if you continue going along the enclosure, you'll get to this little train stop where you would be able to board a train and go through the enclosure, but sadly the train was cancelled on the day that I was here, so I wasn't able to record any of that. But yeah, that was it for Ostrava. Next up we have the Zoo of Prague, which has a dedicated exhibit over here for the Nile Lechwe. Again, a nice grassy field on a bit of a slope. It's just a Czech standard right there. No, but yeah, the viewing areas, other than the one we were just at here, aren't great. These ones are a little too overgrown to give you great views of the animals. They have to kind of be in the exact right spot to be able to see them properly, but still you can get some really nice views of them here. Here you can see some of their backstage holding and the backstage building in the back there. But yeah, that was it for Prague. Then we have the final Nile Lechwe enclosure of the video at Zoo Zlín over here, where we just have a really nice exhibit once again. This one is shared with the rhino, the white rhino if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we got Nile Lechwe sharing exhibits with elephants, rhinos, hippos. We just got all the pachyderms. Just throw in one with a tape here and just for completion's sake, and we're all done. So but yeah, you can see this is mostly a rhino enclosure with all the mud baths and such, but we do have the Lechwe sitting in there. We even have a little baby, so that's just really cute. As we continue to follow this enclosure, you can see there's a little moat separating us from the enclosure itself, so you don't get great views from this side. There is a second yard for the rhino, but I don't know if the Lechwe can get to this one. I don't think so, judging by the type of fence used. And those were all the Nile Lechwe enclosures that I got for you. There are also Nile Lechwes at Serengeti-park Hodenhagen. But sadly, my footage of this one on my GoPro got corrupted, so all I got was that footage of the Nile Lechwe sitting there eating. But what I do have is the West Africa enclosure over here, which has the KAFUE Lechwe, a different type of Lechwe, which we'll be looking at now from a bunch of different zoos as well. So this is Serengeti-park Hodenhagen. The car safari has a huge enclosure that features all sorts of animals, including pygmy hippo, which actually can completely free roam this area. They can get right up to your car if they so wish. I don't think they would do that very often though. And behind the pygmy hippo there we can see the KAFUE Lechwe. The KAFUE Lechwe, by the way, is a subspecies of the red Lechwe, but interestingly most zoos appear to be keeping the KAFUE Lechwe. Only 2 zoos I've seen have the red Lechwe, I think, which we'll be seeing at the end of this video. But yeah, over here we are in Berlin, and we have the beautiful classical giraffe house. And as we come inside, we get some backstage views into this backstage over here. This building features views into all sorts of stalls around, including the Janarog, the Dik, the giraffes, of course, because this is the giraffe house, would make sense. But there's also views into the Lechwe backstage, which are right as you come in, straight to the left, and then you can find them right here. We can see all the females standing in front and the males over there in the back. You can get really close up to them if they're inside, so that's really cool. You can get a great view of them. But of course their enclosure isn't inside this gorgeous building, and for that we have to go outside. So let's have a look at that. We can see it's a pretty classic hoofstock enclosure with the U-mode, pretty flat but with some nice furnishings. It's not horrible, but yeah, it's definitely a very classic city zoo enclosure, which like it or not, I'm personally not the biggest fan of it, but I guess this one's quite nice. I do like the building in the back a lot. The giraffe stall is really nice. And the enclosure, I will say, is quite spacious, so that's also a big bonus. I've definitely seen a lot worse, and it is all for the Nile Lechwe. The other animals have their own enclosures, just like this one in the other part. So yeah, pretty cool. Next up, Parc Dvůr has their Nile Lechwe over here in a very standard Bouillon enclosure. It is a sloping down enclosure, like pretty much all of them. Still not a fan of it, and I don't really have much else to say about this one. It's very simple. It's a bit of forest. with some Lechwe. So let's move on to Safaripark Dvůr once again. And not only do they have the Nile Lechwe, they also have the KAFUE Lechwe in this gorgeous drive-through enclosure. Now we are actually inside of the enclosures, and yeah, this one is absolutely humongous. It starts off with the Pelican Lake at the start that we saw, and there's several of these little shelters. We're actually going uphill across this little bridge over here, which we will pass under a little bit later. As you can see, the roads leading over there. But yeah, we're going right up to this hill where we will finally see some animals. There are some Watusi cattle lying over there. There's also common eland. There's blue wildebeest. There is a zebra around here as well. There's just so many animals, and it is such a beautiful landscape that this was built in, maybe except for the power lines running straight through, but even that created a pretty cool vista, which we will see in a moment. Yeah, we're going downhill already again as we cross the common eland, sitting over here, and we are coming up to the bush camp, at least according to the sign. I didn't really see much that resembles that, except a couple of crates over there on the left right here. I guess this is the bush camp. But yeah, as you can see, so many animals, such a naturalistic environment. It is just really, really, really cool, and beautiful enclosure. The Lechwe are sitting over there in the back, lying around in the grass. Let's get a little close-up of them. Also, we got the male running up to them. He came all the way from the slope, downward slope that we were on earlier. Yeah, it's really cool to see them in such a big space like this. And over there, you can also see kind of the terrain that's created around this power line split in the path, and that actually gets traversed by the animals as well, which is just really, really cool. Yeah, more of the same shelters, and now we are moving along further across back into the forest and under that bridge that we crossed earlier. So yeah, here you got a lovely bit of forest habitat. And you can also see a little stream in there. I actually saw some wild nutria in that stream, which was really cool. Oh yeah, here we're passing under that bridge, going back up on the top of this hill. You can also see kind of the back fencing. So we have reached the edge of the zoo here finally. A couple more bits of shelter, and then we're getting to the end of this habitat where there's actually a gate waiting. And most safari parks I've been to just have a cattle grid and that's it. But this zoo actually does have some gates as well to deter animals from going through, I guess. So you drive up to the gate and then the gate opens and it lets you through. But yeah, that's it for Dvůr. Over here at Zoo Hluboká, also in the Czech Republic, we have more KAFUE Lechwe in a pretty nicely decorated area with all the African huts and the kind of branch fences that look really, really cool. But I will say the habitat itself is pretty small. I wasn't a huge fan of that one. It does look like the stalls of the animals are inside these little huts, which is pretty cool. But yeah, this is the entire habitat. It's definitely very much on the small side, so that's a bit of a bummer. Over here at Tierpark Nordhorn, there is another safari enclosure. This one has a zebra, the Lechwe, there's marabou stork, and there's also some crested guinea fowl, helmeted guinea fowls walking around. Sorry. You got some more views into this. I think this is across from the wolf habitat. Yeah. Which may or may not be quite outdated, because I think there's a new wolf habitat nowadays. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, you got some glass views into the savannah from here as well. And that's pretty much it for Nordhorn. Over here at Plzeň, the zoo, Plzeň Zoo, we've got a massive safari habitat as well with like zebra, pelicans as well sitting there in the grass, and the Lechwe walking around in the rain. Beautiful, large habitat. This is definitely my favorite habitat of the zoo. I'm pretty sure it's one of the biggest ones, which is probably no small reason why. You also get some nice views of the backstages here. So here you can see what those look like. There's a whole row of them, and you get views into all of them. So here's the Black Book one, for instance. Yeah, that goes on for quite a bit with the backstages of all the different animals. Going past that, you also get some elevated views of the back of the enclosure. So in the back there you can see the lake that we were standing in front from the other side. But yeah, from up here you can look down into the enclosure as well, across this small concrete barrier over here. And there's also some benches where you can enjoy the sounds of the of the guinea fowl. Very nice. So yeah, that's it for Plzeň. Next up we have the Zoo of Prague once again, and not only do they have the Nile Lechwe, they also have the KAFUE Lechwe, although here they are listed as just the Southern Lechwe, which would be the Red Lechwe. I'm just going to go off of what Zootierliste says, which is the KAFUE Lechwe for this one. But yeah, we've got a lovely large savanna habitat, as you can see, and we can go all the way alongside it across this walkway, which brings us down to the ground level again. You can see there's some areas over here where the animals can get away from the giraffes, and we can see the gorilla enclosure over here with the savanna habitat in the background, so you could see theoretically the animals walking behind the gorillas there. Over here at the Zoo of Rostock, we've already seen this exhibit a bunch of times. Yeah, it's the main savanna animal exhibit of this zoo, and with lots of nice views into this nice open green habitat with a bunch of trees and bits of shade, and then the backstage buildings over there in the middle of the enclosure. It's definitely a nice layout, and it looks pretty cool as far as like kind of a classical zoo exhibit goes. This one definitely looks quite nice. It keeps going on for quite a bit as well, with some more viewing areas all the way in the back there. And yeah, that concludes the KAFUE Lechwe enclosures. And now these last two zoos are actually listed as Red Lechwe on Zootierliste. So over here we have Monde Sauvage, where the first view I got of the Lechwe here are on the giraffe enclosure, where I could see a male Red Lechwe, I should say, sleeping over there or eating some hay on the ground in the middle in a pile of hay. But mostly you will see the Lechwe along the car safari of the zoo, which we've seen a couple of times already. We'll definitely see it some more times as well, because this habitat has just so many animals on it. It's crazy just how many species are mixed here. But yeah, we can see we see cattle, there's eland, there's zebra, there's all sorts of antelope, bongo, and yeah, in the distance we can also see some Lechwe somewhere, probably. Yeah, over here we are finally passing some Lechwe, so you can see them grazing in the field along with the eland and such. And this one was actually quite close to the road, and well, not anymore, I guess. But yeah, it's a massive, beautiful enclosure. Here we can see a male Lechwe sitting over there. That's pretty cool. Yeah, massive enclosure, really cool. You get to see so much, but yeah, that's kind of the difficulty of it for these videos. I can show the entire enclosure, but it's just filled with some bits of sparse tree cover. It's humongous. Like, it definitely takes like half an hour to get through the entire thing, and that's if you're not constantly stopping to look at animals. So really cool stuff. Here we can actually see the backstage building. So here there would be a bunch of stalls, I presume, but there's probably more in other space as well. Here we can see that giraffe enclosure we saw earlier with the elevated viewing point in the back, and here there's a gate connecting the two enclosures, so that's how I guess they would let some animals onto the giraffe enclosure or not. Not exactly sure how they pick and choose that stuff, but yeah, that's it for Monde Sauvage over here. And now it's time for the final zoo. It's Pakawi Park, everyone's favorite. So yeah, very old footage, so excuse the camera quality here. But this is the savanna enclosure of Pakawi Park. It's actually not too bad on first glance. Like, I really like the stone wall on the visitor side over here, and the fact that there's kind of a bit of a moat. It definitely looks pretty cool that way. And then there's a massive backstage building in the middle that gives you an elevated view of the entire space as you keep going around. I especially like this side, in particular the viewing area from down below with the waterfront. That's just a pretty cool look, I gotta admit. Here we can see some feeding areas for the giraffes in particular. And yeah, as we walk down this zigzag bridge, you can get a better look at that waterfront area, which looks really cool. That looks cool. I gotta give credit where credit is due, but don't worry, Pakawi always finds a way to ruin it. In this case, it's the fact that giraffe can get so close to the bridge here that people can just pet the giraffes, and that's just not great. The zoo definitely should do something to minimize this sort of behavior, because people were feeding the giraffe. It was just not a good sight, honestly. But yeah, from down below here, the views are pretty cool. It's a decent savanna enclosure, so yeah, needs a little bit of fixing. The elephants in the back need more space, but other than that, it's a pretty decent enclosure for Pakawi right there. But yeah, that's going to be it for me today. Hope you all enjoyed seeing some Nile Lechwe inspiration. Definitely managed to gather lots of Nile Lechwe and other Lechwe footage in the Czech Republic, so I'm really glad I waited with this video until I had all of that. I hope you guys thought the wait was worth it as well. Next week, by the way, will be the Red Panda video for International Red Panda Day, which is just 8 days from now. Woo! So I hope you look forward to that. And if you want, you can already find all of my links supporting the Red Panda Network. I might put them in this video as well, though that will be a bit out of place. I think Red Panda donation links in a Lechwe video. Yeah, you can find it on the channel, I'm sure. I trust you. Alright, see you then. Bye-bye.